Hello, dear friends. Welcome everyone who is watching Sotnik-TV. Today is Saturday, June 27th, 2020. It's 8:01 p.m. in Moscow and our live Saturday summary show is on the air. Frankly speaking, I planned the current program to be totally different, but the life doesn't always turn out exactly how you planned it. So we have to work with what we have. I've been looking forward to making the following interview with my colleague Evgeniy Levkovich, a journalist. But I must accept that I got really upset after our conversation. It's not that I idealized the West and Europe or demonized Russia. I try to avoid doing either. I know that today's guest has a clear point of view. So I tried to ask him about the construction by the so-called authorities who are building in Russia. How do citizens react to that? What are the options for Russia? And what kind of future events inside the country he can predict? And these are the answers I've got. These are his answers. Let's start with the key question right away. Voting on the amendments to the constitution is on in Russia. What is your take on what's going on? What do you think about the amending and the rigmarole over it? I don't take it as something important. That was to be expected and there is nothing new about this. I see the problem neither in Putin nor in the amending, but rather in people who live here. Until now, Putin has been a total reflection of Russian society. At least the main part of this society. Putin is the voice of these people. He illustrates the nastiest qualities of Russians. He fuels his electorate with those nasty ideas. And we need to accept that his electorate is real. We do, in fact, Russian authorities call it the underlying people. I don't want to use such words as the people and to avoid the one-size-fits-all approach. Of course, there are many adorable people living in Russia. But what can they do to oppose their government? What personally can I do being a Russian citizen? I could go under a tank or commit an act of terrorism. But neither of those two options feels like something I'm ready for. I'm not willing to give my life for some totally ephemeral goal. What about the construction in Russia that was approved by the authorities? What details can you share with us? Can you tell us what it will be? Everything has been constructed a long time ago. As I have already said, now there is nothing new going on in Russia. If we stop fooling around, we'll see that Putin will stay in power by any means. If not amending the constitution, then he would find some other way to achieve his goal. He could have created a new branch of the government for him to lead. It's clear that any formality is beside the point. The people who are now in power in Russia have really sunk their hooks in. It's clear that they are planning on staying for a long time, and there is no option to make them resign other than using force. There needs to be a revolt or something like that. Otherwise, nothing will ever change, that much is clear. According to the article in the New York Times, the US intelligence services are now aware that Russia is secretly offering money to kill American soldiers and the rest of the coalition countries who fight in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the court trial on MH17 case is on in Hague, the Netherlands. Can all these pieces of information one day persuade the world that Russia is a terrorist state? I think they cannot. Can you explain why? Well, isn't China a terrorist state? Isn't the USA a terrorist state? We're not speaking about China or the US now. Here's the short answer to your question. Europe is a whore. Russia poses an interest to the world as long as it has money. It can still provide the world with its riches, as well as its oil and so on. So Russia remains interesting from this perspective. How can one stay impartial from a state when that state and its laws are represented by police that intrudes into someone's life and stays there for as long as they wish? It's difficult. Still, what should people do? They should live as people always did. Didn't people visit restaurants and fall in love or have children during the time of Joseph Stalin? That's not what I mean. Do you find that attempts to change anything inside Russia is senseless? The country is ugly and there is nothing we can do about it. I didn't say that. One can always serve as an example for people trying to bring positive changes to his native country. But speaking about myself, I'm not a soldier and I'm not into politics. I have no desire to assault someone, even Vladimir Putin. I don't believe that such a scenario can change anything, even though some people would love for it to come true. I'm just not that kind of person. Be careful when talking about an assassination. I don't give a damn. Anyways, I'm not the kind of person who is able to take a human life. At least that's what I think. What can I do about the whole situation? Honestly, I don't know. I can help people and unite them. I can form a community that will thrive to survive. At least there will be a chance for my kind of people. What else can I do? You're asking me some obvious questions. I don't think those are obvious. Well, those have been obvious for quite a long time. For example, I couldn't imagine that you would talk about a survival strategy, or even suggest such an option. Citizens need to survive. Well, there are a few other options actually. Of course, one may go into the bush and conduct guerrilla warfare. One may try to change the government using force. But personally, I don't consider those options. According to the logic of current events, don't you see that a war is coming? I don't see the need for such a war. Any goal can now be achieved by methods other than fighting. Such methods are in fact being used already. As far as I can see, the society in Russia has been degrading. And there is no such thing as a partial degradation. Half of a brain can't be degraded while the other half is working normally. Do you think there might be a level to which the country can sink before it recovers? Or is the pit Russia is fallen into bottomless? I don't know about that. I have never thought about such matters. What I can see is that during my lifetime, there won't be any good remaining in Russia. Of course, I mean good as I see it. Some people now feel excellent in this country. But I don't expect anything good for myself and people like me in the near future. This is it for today. The conclusion is staring us in the face. The authorities are planning to rule over Russia forever. They're here for as long as they can't stay in power. Then they want to pass their authority to their children and grandchildren. Those gangsters want to remain in power for ages. Once we look deeply into this problem, we need to agree with today's guest who clearly suggested, don't lay the blame at someone else's door. The majority of Russians have now turned into criminals, fascists and the riffraff, so who is to blame for what's happened to their country? Watch Sotnik-TV, take care of yourselves, your heart and soul. Goodbye.